The conference room erupted in applause as my husband's colleagues celebrated his promotion to senior vice president. I stood at the back, holding the laptop that would end his career, watching him smile that charming smile I'd fallen in love with 10 years ago. The smile that had lied to me for God knows how long. Speech! Speech! Someone shouted. Marcus raised his hands in mock surrender, that dimple appearing in his left cheek. All right. I just want to say thank you to everyone who believed in me. To my amazing team who puts up with my impossible deadlines. Laughter rippled through the room. And most importantly, to my beautiful wife, Simone, who's been my rock through everything. All eyes turned to me. I managed to wave, my fingers trembling around the laptop. If only they knew. If only any of these people celebrating him knew what I discovered 3 days ago. Simone actually put together a little slideshow, Marcus continued, his voice warm with what sounded like genuine affection. Some photos from our recent vacation to celebrate this promotion. Honey, do you want to set that up? I nodded, walking toward the front on legs that felt like water. This was it. The moment I'd been planning since I opened that cloud storage folder by accident. The moment everything would change. Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let me tell you how I got here. How the woman everyone called the perfect corporate wife became the one about to detonate a bomb in the middle of her husband's celebration. 3 weeks earlier, I was living what I thought was a blessed life. Marcus and I had been married for 10 years. We met in college. He was the ambitious business major. I was studying education. I taught second grade at a private school in Charlotte, North Carolina, making $48,000 a year while Marcus climbed the corporate ladder at Meridian Financial, eventually pulling in $320,000 annually. We had the house in the suburbs with a white picket fence. Well, actually a tasteful black iron fence, but you get the idea. We had date nights every Thursday. We had a 5-year plan that included starting a family. We had everything. Or so I thought. The morning it all fell apart started like any other Tuesday. Marcus left early for a breakfast meeting. I had a planning period first thing, so I worked from home, grading papers at our kitchen island. That's when I noticed his iPad sitting on the counter. He must have forgotten it in his rush. I picked it up, planning to text him about it, when a notification popped up. A photo upload to his cloud storage. The thumbnail showed a beach. Probably something from our Turks and Caicos trip last month, I thought. We'd gone to celebrate his upcoming promotion, a week of sun and intimacy and reconnecting. I smiled at the memory and opened his Photos app. We shared an Apple family account, so technically I had access to everything, though I'd never snooped. Why would I? I trusted my husband completely. I scrolled through the recent uploads. There were the photos I expected, us on the beach, sunset dinners, the gorgeous view from our hotel room. But then I saw other photos. Photos I didn't remember taking. Photos that made my blood run cold. Marcus on a different beach. With a woman. A beautiful woman with long dark hair, laughing as he picked her up, her legs wrapped around his waist. Their lips meeting in a kiss that was anything but friendly. My hand started shaking. I scrolled faster. More photos. The same woman. In restaurants I didn't recognize. In hotel rooms that weren't ours. In his arms, his bed, his life. The timestamps made my stomach drop. Some were from our work conference in Miami 3 months ago. Others from his team-building retreat in San Diego. A few from last week when he claimed he was visiting a client in Atlanta. I ran to the bathroom and vomited. Bile burned my throat as I gripped the toilet bowl, my perfect life crumbling around me. 10 years. 10 years of loving him, supporting him, being the understanding wife when he worked late, traveled for business, climbed his way to the top. How long had this been going on? I went back to the iPad with trembling hands. I needed to know everything. I opened his messages, his emails, his apps. What I found was worse than I could have imagined. Her name was Vanessa. Vanessa Chun, his executive assistant, who'd been hired 18 months ago. The woman I'd met at company functions, who I'd chatted with about her passion for yoga and her rescue dog. The woman who'd complimented my dress at the Christmas party while she was sleeping with my husband. Their messages were intimate, passionate, disgusting. Planning secret meetups. sending explicit photos, making fun of me. Does she suspect anything? Vanessa had written 2 months ago. Simone. No way. She's too busy with her little second graders to notice anything. I could probably move you into the house, and she'd just set another place at dinner. Marcus's response had 3 laughing emojis. The words stabbed into my chest like physical knives. My little second graders. As if my career was a joke. As if the children I nurtured and taught every day were beneath his important corporate world. But the worst was yet to come. I found emails. Emails from Marcus to a real estate agent about a condo in downtown Charlotte. A 1-bedroom luxury unit with floor-to-ceiling windows and a price tag of $450,000. For your new beginning, the agent had written. Perfect for a successful bachelor ready to enjoy the finer things. Bachelor. He was planning to divorce me. He was already shopping for his post-marriage life. I dug deeper. I found mortgage pre-approval letters. I found spreadsheets showing our joint assets. I found a consultation confirmation with a divorce attorney named Bradford Hayes, scheduled for next month. Then I found the folder labeled SV Promo Vacation. My heart stopped. Our Turks and Caicos trip. Our romantic getaway to celebrate his promotion. I clicked it open. The photos loaded slowly, each one a fresh wound. Marcus and Vanessa. In Turks and Caicos. At the same resort where we'd stayed. In the same ocean where we'd swum together. The timestamps showed they'd been there the week before our trip. He'd taken his mistress on our vacation, then brought me to the same place like some sick consolation prize. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. I sat on the cold kitchen floor, iPad clutched to my chest, and tried to process what my life had become. Everything was a lie. Every I love you. Every you're my world. Every intimate moment we'd shared. All of it contaminated by this betrayal. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the sun to shift across the floor. Long enough for my phone to buzz 3 times with texts from Marcus asking about his iPad. Long enough for something inside me to change. The tears dried. The pain crystallized into something hard and cold. I stood up, washed my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me wasn't the naive wife anymore. She was someone new. Someone who'd been underestimated for the last time. I spent the rest of the day methodically documenting everything. I took screenshots of every incriminating message, every email, every photo. I created a hidden folder in my own cloud storage and backed everything up in 3 different places. I took photos of his iPad screen with my phone as extra insurance. By the time Marcus came home that evening, I had a plan forming. Not the emotional confrontation he might expect if I discovered his affair. No, that would be too easy for him. He'd already hired a divorce lawyer. He'd already planned his exit strategy. He thought he was in control. He was about to learn he was very, very wrong. "Hey, baby," Marcus called out as he walked in, loosening his tie. "Did you find my iPad? I've been looking everywhere." I walked out of the kitchen, his iPad in my hands, a smile plastered on my face. Acting. I was acting now, playing the role of the oblivious wife one last time. "Right here, honey. You left it on the counter this morning." He kissed my cheek, taking the iPad. If he noticed my body stiffen, he didn't show it. "You're the best. How was your day?" "Fine. Just grading papers, planning lessons. You know, my little second grader stuff." He didn't even catch the edge in my voice. "That's great, babe. I'm starving. What's for dinner?" I'd ordered his favorite, Thai food from the place he loved. I served it with a smile, made small talk acted normal. Inside, I was screaming. But I'd learned something important from 10 years with a corporate executive. The best players never show their hand too early. Over the next 3 weeks, I became a detective, a spy in my own marriage. I hired a private investigator named Julia Morris, a sharp woman in her 50s who'd seen everything and was impressed by nothing. I gave her copies of everything I'd found and paid her $5,000 from my secret savings account, money I'd been tucking away for years from my teaching salary, just a little here and there. Money Marcus didn't know existed because he'd never bothered to ask about my finances. Julia delivered results. Photos of Marcus and Vanessa having lunch at expensive restaurants. Video of them entering her apartment building together, not emerging for hours. Proof that the Atlanta client meeting was actually a weekend getaway to a bed and breakfast in the mountains. But Julia found something else. Something that made my blood boil, even hotter than the affair. Marcus's company, Meridian Financial, had a strict policy against relationships between supervisors and subordinates. If anyone found out about his affair with his executive assistant, he could face serious consequences. Maybe even lose his job. Certainly lose his promotion. He knew this. That's why they'd been so careful. Why they used encrypted messaging apps for their most explicit conversations. Why they never showed affection at company events. And there was more. Julia discovered that Marcus had been funneling money from our joint account into a separate account I didn't know about. Small amounts at first. $500 here, $1,000 there. But over 18 months, he'd siphoned off nearly $35,000 of our savings. My savings. Money I'd contributed from my teaching salary, from summer jobs, from the small inheritance my grandmother left me. He was stealing from me to fund his affair. To pay for hotel rooms and jewelry and trips with his mistress. I sat in my car in the school parking lot, reading Julia's report, and something inside me snapped. Not into hysterics. Into clarity. Cold, perfect clarity. Marcus wanted to make me look like the fool. The pathetic wife too stupid to notice her husband's affair. He'd mocked me to his mistress, dismissed my career, stolen my money, and planned to divorce me on his terms. But I held all the cards now. I had evidence that could destroy his career. I had proof of financial misconduct. I had everything I needed to take him apart piece by piece. And then I remembered his promotion party. The company was throwing him a celebration next week for making senior vice president. A big event with all the executives, all the board members, everyone important at Meridian Financial. They'd asked me to put together a slideshow. Photos of Marcus's journey at the company, personal touches to make it special. I'd said yes weeks ago, before I knew what he was. A smile spread across my face. Oh, I put together a slideshow all right, just not the one they were expecting. I spent the next week creating my masterpiece. I took real vacation photos, Marcus and me smiling at the camera, looking like the perfect couple. I interspersed them with photos from his cloud storage. Photos that looked innocent at first glance. Marcus on a beach. Marcus at a restaurant. Marcus in a hotel room. But I'd done something special with those photos. I'd edited them carefully, removing Vanessa from each shot. So it would look like Marcus was alone in all these beautiful places. The beach where we'd supposedly vacationed together. The restaurant where we'd had our anniversary dinner. Except the timestamps were visible. And they didn't match our trips at all. Anyone looking closely would see something was off. Why was Marcus alone on a beach in April when we'd gone in June? Why was he having a romantic dinner in San Diego when that was supposed to be a work trip? Why were there hotel room photos from Atlanta when he'd said he was in meetings all day? The slideshow would raise questions, create doubt, make people look closer. And then, for the finale, I'd added a few very special photos. The real ones. Marcus and Vanessa, together, unmistakably intimate. Photos that would leave no room for interpretation. I saved the whole thing on my laptop and practiced my innocent smile. My shocked gasp for when people realized what they were seeing. My devastated wife act. Marcus had no idea. He came home every night and kissed me like nothing was wrong. He talked about the party, how excited he was, how this promotion was everything he'd worked for. "And you'll be there, right, babe?" he'd asked the night before. "I want you by my side for this." "Of course," I'd said, my voice sweet as honey. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The night before the party, I did something else. I sent an anonymous email to Meridian Financial's HR department. Just a simple tip. You might want to check the employee handbook section on workplace relationships, specifically as it relates to Marcus Sullivan and his executive assistant. I didn't include proof. Not yet. I just planted a seed. Let them start looking. Now here I was, standing in front of a room full of people who were about to see my husband for what he really was. My hands were steady as I connected my laptop to the projector. The screen behind Marcus lit up with the Meridian Financial logo. "Whenever you're ready, honey," Marcus said, sitting down at the head of the table, completely relaxed, completely confident. Vanessa sat 3 seats down, wearing a professional navy dress, her hair in a sleek bun. She looked at me with something like pity. Poor Simone, the look said. So clueless. I smiled at her. Just wait, I thought. I put together a little retrospective, I announced to the room. Marcus's journey over the past few years, the places he's been, the experiences that shaped him into the leader you're celebrating today. Murmurs of appreciation. Marcus beamed. I clicked to the first slide. A photo of Marcus on his first day at Meridian, 10 years ago, fresh-faced and eager. Where it all began, I narrated. Click. Marcus receiving his first promotion. Marcus leading a team meeting. Marcus at a company retreat. People smiled. Someone said, "Look how young he looks there." Then I changed the tempo. Marcus has always worked so hard, I said, my voice steady. Always traveling for the company. Always going the extra mile. Click. Marcus on a beach. Alone, smiling at the camera. The timestamp read April 14th. Beautiful sunset, someone commented. Yes, I agreed. From a business trip to Miami. Marcus shifted in his seat. Something flickered across his face. He was starting to sense something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what. Click. Marcus at an intimate restaurant table. Alone. Candlelight. Wine glasses. Another client dinner, I said cheerfully. Marcus takes such good care of his professional relationships. The timestamp said February 22nd. Our anniversary was February 20th. I'd been at home that weekend, thinking he was at a conference. A few people in the room were leaning forward now, looking more closely at the screen. Click. Marcus in a hotel room. Expensive sheets. Champagne on ice. Alone. San Diego team building, I narrated. Vanessa had gone pale. She knew what was coming. She was frantically looking at Marcus, but he was staring at the screen, the color draining from his face. Marcus, honey, I said sweetly, you traveled so much this past year. So many beautiful places. So many special moments. Click. The room went silent. On the screen, Marcus and Vanessa wrapped around each other on a beach, kissing like they were alone in the world. Someone gasped. I heard a chair scrape. Oh my, I said, my hand flying to my mouth in perfectly practiced shock. That's not. I must have grabbed the wrong photo. But I didn't stop the slideshow. Click. Marcus and Vanessa at that romantic restaurant. Her hand on his face. Him looking at her the way he used to look at me. What the hell? Marcus stood up, reaching for my laptop. But I'd locked it. He couldn't stop it now. Click. 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 Photo after photo. Their affair lay bare for everyone to see. Beach photos. Hotel photos. Photos of them in his car, her sitting on his lap in the parking garage. Timestamps showing their relationship had been going on for over a year. The final photo appeared. Marcus and Vanessa in Turks and Caicos, the same resort where he'd taken me a week later. The timestamp was impossible to miss. The room erupted. Voices overlapping. Someone saying, "Is this real?" Someone else saying, "Oh my God." The head of HR, a stern woman named Patricia Moore, standing up with her face like stone. Marcus lunged for the laptop, but I snapped it shut and held it against my chest. "Simone," he hissed, his face red with rage and humiliation. "What are you doing?" I looked at him with tears in my eyes. Real tears this time. Not of sadness, but of relief. Of justice. "I'm showing everyone who you really are, Marcus. I'm telling the truth." Vanessa had already fled. I saw her push through the crowd at the door, practically running. Marcus stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Around us, chaos erupted. "Marcus, is this true?" That was David Chun, the CFO, his voice cutting through the noise. "I can explain," Marcus started, but what explanation could there possibly be? Patricia Moore, the HR director, stepped forward. Her expression was ice. "Mr. Sullivan, Miss Chun, I need both of you in my office immediately." "Patricia, this is clearly some kind of setup," Marcus said, finding his voice. He pointed at me. "My wife, she's unstable. She's been acting strange lately. This is manipulated. The metadata on these photos says otherwise," I said quietly, pulling a flash drive from my purse. I held it up. Every single image, unedited, with original timestamps and geolocation data, plus text messages, emails, and hotel receipts, all backed up and verified by a private investigator. I handed the flash drive to Patricia. "I believe you'll find this violates Meridian Financial's workplace relationship policy." Section 4.3, if I remember correctly. The one about supervisors and subordinates. Patricia took the drive, her jaw tight. My office. Both of you. Now. I'm not going anywhere with her lies, Marcus began. It wasn't a request, Mr. Sullivan. Patricia's voice could have frozen hell itself. Marcus looked around the room. His colleagues, his team, the board members, all staring at him with expressions ranging from shock to disgust to barely concealed schadenfreude. His moment of triumph had become his public execution. His eyes met mine. The hatred there was palpable. You're going to regret this, Simone. No, I said softly. I really don't think I will. Security escorted both Marcus and Vanessa to HR. I was asked to stay, to provide a statement. As the conference room emptied, people whispered and stared. Some looked at me with pity, others with admiration. One woman, a director named Sarah, squeezed my shoulder as she passed. Good for you, she whispered. He had it coming. I sat in that empty conference room for a few minutes, my hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. I'd done it. I'd actually done it. But this was just the beginning. My phone buzzed. A text from Julia, my private investigator. News travels fast. Well played. Call me when you're ready for Phase 2. Phase 2? Yes. Because destroying Marcus's career was satisfying, but it wasn't enough. Not after what I'd discovered in the week since I'd scheduled this party. I'd kept digging. I'd found more than just an affair. 3 days ago, I'd received a call from a number I didn't recognize. A woman's voice, nervous and young. Is this Simone Sullivan? Yes. Who is this? A pause. My name is Rachel. Rachel Kim. I was Marcus's executive assistant. Before Vanessa. My blood had gone cold. I left the company 14 months ago. I saw on LinkedIn that Marcus is getting promoted and I couldn't stay silent anymore. She took a shaky breath. Mrs. Sullivan, did he do to Vanessa what he did to me? We'd met at a coffee shop in a different part of town. Rachel was 26, beautiful, and carrying a weight of shame that was heartbreaking to witness. He started small, she told me, hands wrapped around her untouched latte. Compliments, asking me to work late, then drinks after work. He said his marriage was dead, that you were cold and distant, that he was only staying because he felt obligated. The lies felt like slaps. I'd encouraged him to work late. I'd understood his career demands. I'd been anything but cold. I was 24, Rachel continued. Fresh out of college. He was older, successful, charming. I thought. She wiped her eyes. I thought he loved me. We had an affair for 6 months. What happened? I'd asked, though I already knew. I could see the pattern now. He got bored, or maybe someone new caught his eye. He became distant, critical. Then one day Vanessa was hired, and suddenly I was being written up for mistakes I didn't make. My performance reviews tanked. Within 2 months, I was fired. Fired for what? Insubordination. Failure to meet standards. It was all lies, but I couldn't fight it. He's a senior vice president. I was nobody. And if I told anyone about the affair, she looked at me with haunted eyes. He told me it would be my word against his. That everyone would think I was a desperate girl who slept with her boss and got mad when it didn't work out. Rachel had given me copies of text messages, emails, even a recording she'd made of one of their final conversations where Marcus cruelly dismissed her, telling her she'd been fun while it lasted, but he'd moved on to better options. She wasn't the only one. With Rachel's help, I'd found 2 other women. Jennifer, who'd been an analyst on his team 3 years ago. And before her, Melissa, an intern who'd left not just the company, but the entire industry after their affair ended badly. Marcus had a pattern. Young women in subordinate positions. He'd charm them, seduce them, make them fall in love with him. Then he'd discard them and destroy their careers to keep them quiet. Vanessa was just the latest. And she was different in one crucial way. She'd gotten too close. He'd gotten sloppy, kept too many records, let the affair go on too long. That's how I'd caught them. But Vanessa had also done something the others hadn't. She'd started making demands. I'd found emails where she pushed him about leaving me, where she talked about their future together, where she mentioned that her lease was ending and maybe she should just move in with him since Simone probably won't even notice. Marcus had been getting nervous. The divorce lawyer consultation, the condo shopping. He was trying to manage the situation, trying to stay in control. He was about to learn that control was an illusion. After giving my statement to HR, I drove home in a daze. The house felt different now. Contaminated. Every room held memories that were now tainted with lies. The bed we'd shared where he'd come home from being with her. The kitchen where he'd kissed me while planning his exit. The living room where we'd discussed our future while he was building one without me. I went to our home office, Marcus's domain, and sat at his desk. I had his passwords now. Julia had shown me how to access everything. His computer, his files, his digital life. What I found made the affair look quaint. Marcus had been embezzling from Meridian Financial. Not huge amounts. Nothing that would trigger immediate red flags. But over 3 years, he'd been padding expense reports, creating phantom vendors, and skimming money into that secret account I'd already discovered. The $35,000 I thought he'd stolen from our joint account, that was nothing. He'd taken nearly $200,000 from the company. He'd used it to fund his lifestyle, the gifts for his mistresses, the secret condo he'd been planning, a boat I didn't even know he'd purchased, registered under an LLC in the Cayman Islands. I sat back in his chair, my mind reeling. This wasn't just infidelity. This was fraud. This was criminal. My phone rang. Patricia Moore from HR. Mrs. Sullivan, I want to thank you for bringing this matter to our attention. What's going to happen? I asked. Mr. Sullivan's promotion has been rescinded, effective immediately. He and Miss Chin have both been placed on administrative leave, pending investigation. I can't share more details, but... She paused. Your flash drive contained quite a bit of information. We'll be conducting a thorough review. Patricia, I said carefully, you might want to look at his expense reports too. Particularly any vendors he's approved personally in the past 3 years. Silence on the other end. Then, what are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying that someone who would violate ethics policies in one area might be willing to do it in others. That's all. Another pause. Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan. We'll be in touch if we need anything else. I hung up and allowed myself a small smile. The seeds were planted. Meridian had excellent forensic accountants. They'd find what I'd found and more. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. You fucking bitch. You've destroyed everything. I hope you're happy. Marcus. Using a phone I didn't recognize. Probably Vanessa's. I didn't respond. I blocked the number and went back to my investigation. Because I'd found something else. Something that made my blood boil hotter than anything else. Marcus had taken out a life insurance policy on me. $2 million. 6 months ago. The beneficiary? A trust in the name of Sullivan Family Estate. But when I dug deeper, and Julia had helped me dig very deep, I found that the trust was controlled entirely by Marcus. I wasn't even listed as a trustee. $2 million if I died, and he'd increased my term life insurance without telling me, forging my signature on the documents. I sat in that office, the evening light fading outside, and felt ice run through my veins. The condo shopping, the divorce lawyer, the financial fraud, and now this. Had he been planning to kill me? Or was it just another way to profit from our marriage? Another angle he was working? I didn't know, but I wasn't going to wait to find out. I called Julia. I need you to document something else. What did you find? Her voice was alert, professional. Life insurance fraud. Forged signatures. And I need you to start tracking Marcus's movements. Where he goes, who he sees. I want to know if he's a threat. You think he might try something? I looked at the policy documents, at my forged signature. I think he's desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I locked myself in the guest room with a chair under the doorknob. It felt paranoid, but I didn't care. I'd underestimated Marcus before. I wouldn't make that mistake again. The next morning, the story broke. Someone had leaked it to the press. Not the national news. We weren't important enough for that. But the Charlotte Business Journal ran a front-page story. Meridian financial executive embroiled in workplace romance scandal. The article was careful, citing anonymous sources and alleged violations of company policy. But anyone who read it knew who they were talking about. Marcus Sullivan, recently promoted senior vice president, and his executive assistant Vanessa Chun. My phone exploded with texts. Friends. Family. People I hadn't talked to in years. Is this about Marcus? Oh my God, are you okay? I never liked him. I always thought something was off. I ignored most of them. But I called my mother in Ohio. Simone, honey, I just saw the news. Her voice was tight with worry. Are you safe? I'm fine, Mom. Are you really? Because this sounds like it's been going on for a while and you didn't tell me. I didn't want to worry you. I had to handle it my way. A long pause. What are you going to do? I'm going to take him for everything he's worth. Good. My mother's voice turned hard. I never trusted that man. Too smooth. Too charming. Men like that always have something to hide. After we hung up, I made another call. To a divorce attorney named Margaretchen, no relation to Vanessa, thankfully. She was a shark, known for destroying cheating spouses in court. Mrs. Sullivan, she said when her assistant put me through. I've been expecting your call. You have. I saw the news, and I did some digging of my own after a colleague mentioned your name. I know about the embezzlement. I sat up straighter. How did you? I have contacts at Meridian. Let's just say your husband isn't as clever as he thinks he is. The question is, how much do you want him to lose? Everything, I said without hesitation. I want him to lose everything. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. Margaretchen and I met the next day at her office in Uptown Charlotte. She was in her 50s, impeccably dressed, with eyes that missed nothing. First things first, she said, sliding papers across her mahogany desk. We need to protect you. File for divorce immediately, claim all marital assets, and get restraining orders if necessary. He texted me yesterday. From Vanessa's phone. Margaret's expression darkened. Saying what? I showed her the screenshot I'd saved. You fucking bitch. You've destroyed everything. That's threatening enough. We'll include it in the filing. She made notes on her legal pad. Now, the embezzlement. How much proof do you have? I pulled out my own folder, organized with the care of a teacher who'd graded thousands of papers. Bank statements, expense reports, emails, screenshots of the secret account, the phantom vendor payments. Margaret whistled low. This is good. Really good. With this, we're not just talking divorce. We're talking criminal charges. I want him prosecuted. The company will handle that once their investigation is complete. But for our purposes, this gives us enormous leverage. North Carolina is an equitable distribution state, which means marital assets get divided fairly, not necessarily equally. And with proof of financial misconduct. She smiled. We can argue you deserve the majority of everything. The house. Yours. His 401k, his pension. We'll go after all of it. And the $35,000 he stole from our joint account. He'll pay it back, plus damages. I leaned back in the leather chair. What about alimony? Margaret's smile turned predatory. Given his income, his misconduct, and the fact that you supported his career while teaching. Oh, honey, he's going to be paying you for a very long time. Over the next week, things move fast. Margaret filed for divorce, citing adultery and financial misconduct. She requested temporary restraining orders preventing Marcus from accessing our joint accounts or coming near our house. A process server delivered the papers to Marcus at his apartment. Yes, he'd already moved out, moved in with Vanessa in her place. According to the server, Marcus had turned purple when he read the filing. Meridian Financial's investigation was in full swing. I'd been interviewed twice, turned over all my evidence, and cooperated fully. The company's forensic accountants found even more than I had. Marcus's embezzlement totaled $247,000 over 3 years. The company filed a criminal complaint. The district attorney's office opened an investigation. And then the dominoes really started falling. Rachel, the former executive assistant, filed a complaint with the EEOC for wrongful termination and sexual harassment. Jennifer and Melissa, the other women Marcus had used and discarded, came forward with their own stories. Suddenly Marcus wasn't just a cheater. He wasn't just an embezzler. He was a serial predator who'd abused his position of power for years. The Charlotte Business Journal ran a second story, then a third. The local news picked it up. Meridian financial executive accused of sexual harassment, embezzlement. I watched the coverage from my living room. My living room now. Marcus was banned from the property, with a glass of wine in my hand. Each news cycle felt like vindication. But Marcus wasn't going down quietly. His attorney, some expensive shark named Bradford Hayes, the same attorney he'd consulted about divorcing me, filed a counterclaim. It accused me of defamation, invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The argument was absurd. I'd violated his privacy by accessing his iPad in cloud storage. I'd defamed him by showing those photos. I'd intentionally caused him emotional distress by destroying his reputation. Margaret laughed when she read it. This is desperation. He's got nothing, so he's swinging wild. Can he win? Not a chance. You're married. You have legal access to joint devices and accounts. And truth is an absolute defense to defamation. He did have the affair. He did embezzle. All you did was tell the truth. But the counterclaim meant war. Full, open warfare. Marcus started playing dirty. He told anyone who would listen that I was mentally unstable, that I'd fabricated evidence, that I was trying to destroy him out of spite. He went on local radio, actually went on a talk show, and painted himself as the victim. My wife became obsessed with controlling me. She invaded my privacy, stalked me, created this elaborate fantasy about infidelity. I made mistakes, yes, but nothing like what she's claiming. The host, to his credit, pushed back. But there are photos, text messages, multiple women coming forward, all taken out of context, all part of her campaign to ruin me. I listened to the interview in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. The lies, the shameless, bald-faced lies. But I had something Marcus didn't. I had the truth, and I had proof. The next day, I did my own interview with a local investigative reporter named Andrea Lawson who'd been covering the story. We met at a neutral location, and I brought everything. The full photo timeline, the text messages, the emails, the financial records. Mrs. Sullivan, why are you coming forward now? Andrea asked, her camera rolling. Because my husband is lying to the public. He's trying to rewrite history, to make himself the victim. But the facts don't lie. I pulled out the folders. These are screenshots from his own devices. These are bank statements showing money transfers. This is testimony from 3 other women he exploited. He says you're unstable, that you fabricated this. I looked directly at the camera. I was a second-grade teacher for 10 years. I have a master's degree in education. I have 0 history of mental illness, no criminal record, and a reputation in my community as a dedicated educator. Marcus Sullivan, on the other hand, is under criminal investigation for embezzlement. He's been fired from Meridian Financial for ethics violations, and he's facing multiple complaints of sexual harassment. I paused, choosing my words carefully. I'm not doing this out of spite. I'm doing this because women like Rachel Kim, Jennifer Torres, and Melissa Randall deserve justice. Because employees at Meridian deserve to know their company is taking this seriously. And because I refuse to be silenced by a man who abused his power in every way possible. The interview aired that evening. It went viral locally, then got picked up regionally. Suddenly I wasn't the scorned wife. I was the whistleblower. The woman who'd exposed a predator. The public opinion shifted. Comment sections on news articles filled with support for me and condemnation of Marcus. Women shared their own stories of workplace harassment. Men talked about the missing stare phenomenon, the person everyone knows is problematic but nobody stops. Marcus became a pariah. His friends stopped returning calls. His parents, who'd never liked me anyway, tried to stage an intervention, begging him to settle quietly and stop making things worse. He refused. He was fighting, desperate and cornered. And that's when he made his biggest mistake. He tried to get to our money before I could. I got an alert on my phone. Our joint savings account, the one that still had $12,000 in it, protected by the temporary restraining order, had been accessed. Someone had tried to withdraw the full amount. The bank had frozen the transaction because of a court order, but Marcus had tried. He'd violated a court order, risking contempt charges, because he was desperate for cash. His legal bills were piling up. Meridian had frozen his assets, including his 401k and pension, pending the criminal investigation. He was living off Vanessa's salary, a fact that must have killed his ego, and he was drowning. Margaret filed an emergency motion. Within 24 hours, we were in front of Judge Patricia Anderson, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s. "Mr. Sullivan," Judge Anderson said, her voice dripping with disappointment, "you understand you violated a direct order from this court?" Marcus's attorney stood. "Your Honor, my client was unaware. Your client signed acknowledgement of this order 3 days ago." Judge Anderson held up the document. He was explicitly forbidden from accessing joint accounts. Yet he attempted to withdraw $12,000 from the account in question. He was desperate, Your Honor. Mrs. Sullivan has frozen him out of all marital assets. Because he was stealing from them. I couldn't help myself. Margaret put a hand on my arm, but Judge Anderson nodded. Mrs. Sullivan is correct. The evidence of financial misconduct is substantial. Mr. Sullivan, I'm holding you in contempt of court. You'll pay a fine of $5,000, and if you violate any court order again, I'll have you arrested. Do you understand? Marcus's face was red. He nodded stiffly. Furthermore, Judge Anderson continued, I'm granting Mrs. Sullivan's motion for exclusive use of the marital home and all joint accounts. Mr. Sullivan, you are prohibited from entering the property or accessing any joint financial resources until the final divorce hearing. Mrs. Sullivan will maintain the home and its contents. It was a complete victory. The house was mine. The money was mine. Marcus was locked out of everything. As we left the courthouse, Marcus cornered me in the hallway. His attorney tried to stop him, but Marcus shook him off. You're going to pay for this, he hissed, getting in my face. You think you've won? You've destroyed my career, my reputation, my life. You destroyed your own life, I said calmly, though my heart was racing. I just turned on the lights so everyone could see what you'd done in the dark. I'll fight this until I have nothing left. You won't get a dime. You already have nothing left, Marcus. I met his eyes. Your career is over. Your reputation is destroyed. The woman you threw away your marriage for is going to leave you the second she realizes you're broke. And the criminal charges? Those are just getting started. Security was approaching. Margaret pulled me away, but I'd seen something flicker in Marcus's eyes. Fear. Real, genuine fear. He was finally understanding what he'd lost. That night, I did something I'd been planning for weeks. I changed the locks on the house. All of them. I installed a security system with cameras, and I moved his remaining belongings, the things he hadn't grabbed when he'd moved out, into the garage. I texted him, Your things are in the garage. You have 48 hours to collect them, or they're going to Goodwill. He didn't respond. 3 days later, I got a call from Margaret. Vanessa Chin just filed a restraining order against Marcus. What? Apparently he's been staying with her, and it's gotten ugly. He's broke, stressed, lashing out. She told the court he's been verbally abusive, and she fears for her safety. I should have felt satisfaction. The mistress getting exactly what she deserved. But mostly I just felt tired. So she's leaving him. She's kicking him out, which means Marcus has nowhere to go. His parents won't take him. His friends have abandoned him, and he can't afford an apartment. That's not my problem. No, it's not. But Simone, be careful. A man who's lost everything is dangerous. Make sure your security system is working. Don't go anywhere alone. Keep your phone charged. The warning sent chills down my spine. But I'd been preparing for this. I'd been protecting myself all along. The next week brought the hammer down completely. The district attorney filed formal charges against Marcus. Embezzlement, fraud, and forgery related to the life insurance policy he'd taken out in my name. Each charge carried potential prison time. If convicted on all counts, Marcus could face up to 15 years. His attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal. Prosecutors weren't interested. The case was too public, too clear-cut. They wanted to make an example. Meanwhile, the civil lawsuits piled up. Rachel, Jennifer, and Melissa all sued Marcus personally for sexual harassment and emotional distress. They sued Meridian too, but the company settled those quickly, writing checks and implementing new training programs. But Marcus had no money to settle. He'd have to fight or default. He chose to fight, which meant more legal bills he couldn't afford. I watched it all unfold with grim satisfaction. This was justice. Not the emotional satisfaction of confrontation, but the cold, systematic destruction of a man who'd spent years hurting people without consequence. My divorce was proceeding slowly but inevitably. Margaret was methodical, documenting every asset, every debt, every misconduct. The settlement she was preparing would give me the house, most of the retirement accounts, 3 years of alimony, and a cash payment for my share of his remaining assets. Marcus would be left with his debts, his legal bills, and his shame. But there was one more thing I needed to do. One final revelation I'd been holding back. Because I'd found something else in Marcus's files. Something that explained so much about who he really was. I found it buried in his cloud storage, in a folder marked Personal Archive. Inside were journals. Digital journals Marcus had been keeping for years. I'd started reading them out of curiosity, looking for more evidence of the affairs. What I found was so much worse. The entries went back 7 years. They started around the time Marcus first made senior manager at Meridian. The tone was calculating, cold, nothing like the warm man I thought I'd married. Simone is useful, one entry read. She doesn't ask questions about my schedule. She's content with her little teaching job, doesn't demand much attention. Perfect cover for building my career and my real life. My real life. As if our marriage was the fake one. I kept reading, my stomach churning. Melissa is getting clingy. Need to end this before she becomes a problem. The intern position is temporary anyway. I'll just wait it out and avoid her until she leaves. Jennifer caught feelings. Should have seen that coming. Going to have to tank her performance reviews to get her transferred. Can't have her around making things awkward. Rachel is perfect. Young, eager, worships me. And she actually believes I'm going to leave Simone for her. Women are so predictable. Entry after entry, year after year. A catalog of manipulation and cruelty. He wrote about these women like they were objects. Like their feelings, their careers, their lives meant nothing. But the entries about me were worse. Simone's grandmother died. Left her $50,000. She wants to put it in joint savings. I'll let her think that's what happened. Actually going to move it to the Cayman account. She's too trusting to check. That inheritance. My grandmother's money. I thought we'd saved it for a down payment on a bigger house someday. He'd stolen it. 5 years ago. Simone mentioned wanting kids again. Need to keep putting that off. A baby would complicate everything. Harder to travel, harder to maintain my freedom. I'll say work is too demanding right now. She always accepts that excuse. I'd wanted children. For years, I'd asked about starting a family. Marcus always said soon, just not yet. Work is too crazy right now. I believed him. I'd waited. I'd sacrificed my dreams because I thought we were building toward them together. He never intended to have children with me. I was just convenient. A respectable wife to present to his employers and clients while he did whatever he wanted behind my back. The most recent entries were about Vanessa and his exit strategy. Vanessa is pushing for me to leave Simone. Getting annoying. But she has a point. I'm 42, making good money. Why am I still tied to a woman who does nothing for my career? Simone's teaching salary is pathetic. Her family has no connections. She's dead weight. Dead weight. 10 years of marriage reduced to those 2 words. Consulted with Hayes about divorce. Need to be strategic. If I file first, control the narrative. Simone will be too emotional to fight effectively. I can probably get away with minimal alimony since she has her own income. Won't have to pay child support since we never had kids, thank God. The life insurance policy is genius. If something happened to Simone before the divorce is final, I'd get $2 million tax-free. Not planning anything, obviously, but it's good to have options. Hayes suggested it during our consultation, just in case. Just in case. Options. The clinical way he discussed my potential death made me physically ill. But the final entry, dated just 2 weeks ago, was the most revealing. Everything is falling apart. That bitch Simone figured it out. She fucking figured it out, and she played me. The slideshow at my promotion party, I've never been so humiliated in my life. The entire company saw. The board saw. My career is over. Vanessa is useless. Crying all the time, talking about how she didn't know I was married at first, lie, how she thought we'd be together, delusional. She's not the sophisticated woman I thought she was. Just another Rachel, another Jennifer. I picked wrong this time. Simone has evidence. Photos, messages, financial records. How did she get into my accounts? How did she know where to look? I underestimated her. Big mistake. She seemed so passive, so controllable. Turns out she was just quiet. There's a difference. I'm going to lose everything. The house, the money, probably my freedom if they prove the embezzlement. All because I got sloppy with one affair. Should have ended it with Vanessa months ago. Should have been more careful. But I'm not going down alone. If Simone wants war, I'll give her war. I'll drag her through every court, every deposition, every public humiliation I can create. She wants to destroy me. I'll make sure she suffers too. I sat back from the computer, hands shaking. This was who I'd married. Not the charming man who'd courted me in college. Not the ambitious professional I'd supported through every career move. This cold, calculating predator who saw people as tools to be used and discarded. Julia had taught me to document everything. I saved the entire journal, backed it up in multiple locations, and sent a copy to Margaret. Her response came within an hour. This is devastating. And incredibly useful. He's essentially confessed to everything. The embezzlement, the insurance fraud, even the intent to drag out the divorce to hurt you. I'm adding this to our evidence file. I also sent copies to the district attorney's office. The journal entries would support the criminal charges, show pattern and intent. But I did one more thing with those journals. Something that would hurt Marcus in a way he'd never recover from. I sent excerpts to Rachel, Jennifer, and Melissa. I didn't send them everything. I wasn't cruel. But I sent them the entries where Marcus wrote about them, where he detailed his manipulation, his calculations, his complete lack of regard for their feelings. Rachel called me that night, sobbing. He never loved me, she said. Not even a little. It was all just a game to him. I know, I said softly. I'm sorry you had to see that, but I thought you deserved to know the truth. I blamed myself for so long. Thought I wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough. I thought if I'd just been better, he would have stayed. It was never about you, or me, or any of us. It's about him, about what's broken inside him. Thank you for showing me, Rachel whispered. It hurts, but I needed to see it. Jennifer and Melissa had similar reactions. The journals gave them closure in the cruelest way possible. But also, they gave them ammunition for their lawsuits. Marcus's attorney tried to have the journals excluded from evidence, claiming they were private thoughts protected by some kind of privilege. Judge Anderson shut that down immediately. Mr. Sullivan documented his own misconduct in his own words. That's not privileged, that's evidence. Motion denied. The trial date was set. Not the divorce trial, that would take months to wind through the system, but the criminal trial for embezzlement and fraud. Marcus tried one last desperate move. He reached out to my mother. She called me immediately. Simone, Marcus contacted me on Facebook. He wants me to convince you to drop the charges. What did he say? He said you've been vindictive, that you're trying to send him to prison out of spite. He said if you really loved him, you'd show mercy. He actually used the word mercy. I laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. What did you tell him? I told him to go fuck himself. My mother never cursed. The fact that she had spoke volumes. Then I blocked him. But Simone, he sounded desperate. Almost manic. Please be careful. I am, Mom. I promise. But her warning echoed Margaret's, echoed Julia's. Everyone was telling me to be careful. I upgraded my security system again. I varied my routes to and from school. I told my principal about the situation, and the school assigned a security guard to walk me to my car every day. It felt paranoid, but then again, Marcus had taken out a $2 million life insurance policy on me and written in his journal about having options. I wasn't taking any chances. The week before the criminal trial, something unexpected happened. Vanessa reached out. She sent an email to my personal account. Mrs. Sullivan, I know you have no reason to listen to me, but I need to talk to you. Please. It's important. I showed the email to Margaret. Don't respond, she advised. It could be a trap. She could be working with Marcus. But something in the tone made me curious. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. In public, at a busy coffee shop, with Julia the private investigator at a nearby table just in case. Vanessa looked terrible. The polished, confident woman I'd seen at company events was gone. She'd lost weight. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wore no makeup. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as she sat down. "You have 5 minutes." She nodded, wringing her hands. "I'm not going to make excuses. What I did was wrong. I knew he was married. I knew it was inappropriate, and I did it anyway. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to understand something about Marcus that I didn't understand until it was too late." She looked up, eyes haunted. "He's dangerous." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "When we first started, whatever it was, he was charming. Attentive. He made me feel special, like I was the only person who mattered to him. He told me his marriage was over, that you were cold and distant, that he was only staying out of obligation. I've heard that story before. From the other women." Vanessa flinched. "I know. And I was stupid enough to believe I was different, that he really loved me this time." She took a shaky breath. "But after everything fell apart, after the slideshow, after he lost his job, he changed. The mask came off." "What did he do?" "At first it was just verbal, telling me this was my fault, that I'd ruined his life. Then he started getting physical. Nothing that would leave marks, but—" She pulled up her sleeve, showing fading bruises on her wrist. "He grabbed me, shook me, shoved me against the wall. I felt sick. Did you call the police?" "I filed for a restraining order. You probably heard about that. But Mrs. Sullivan, here's what you need to know. He talked about you. A lot. He's obsessed with making you pay. I'm already suing him for divorce. He's facing criminal charges. What more can he do?" Vanessa leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "He said if he's going to lose everything anyway, he might as well make sure you lose everything too. He said he'd rather go to prison for something worthwhile than for embezzlement." The implication hung in the air between us. "Are you saying he threatened to kill me?" "I'm saying he's not rational anymore. He's lost his job, his reputation, his money. He blames you for all of it. And when I tried to calm him down, tried to tell him to just accept the consequences and move on, She touched her wrist. "That's when he hurt me. That's when I knew I had to get away." I sat back, processing. "Why are you telling me this? Why warn me?" "Because I'm not a monster. I made terrible choices. I destroyed your marriage, and I'll have to live with that. But I don't want to live with your death on my conscience." Tears filled her eyes. "And because I need you to know, the journal entries you sent to the other women? Marcus knows about that. He's furious. He thinks you're trying to turn everyone against him. I am turning everyone against him. He earned it. I know. But he's not thinking rationally. He's talking about revenge, about making you sorry. Mrs. Sullivan, Simone, please take this seriously. Get protection. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't underestimate what he might do." After Vanessa left, I sat in that coffee shop for a long time. Julia came over and sat across from me. "Did you get all that?" I asked. She'd been recording the conversation. "Every word. I'll get it to your attorney and to the police. This is a credible threat. She could be lying. She could be trying to scare me. Look at me." Julia's voice was firm. "I've been doing this for 20 years. That woman was terrified. She was telling the truth. I filed a police report that afternoon. I applied for my own restraining order against Marcus. And I did something else. I bought a gun. I'd never owned a weapon before. Never wanted to. But I took a safety course, got my permit, and bought a small handgun that I kept locked in my bedside table. I hated that Marcus had driven me to this. Hated that I felt unsafe in my own home, my own life. But I wasn't going to be a victim. The restraining order was granted. Marcus was ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, and my workplace. Violation would result in immediate arrest. 3 days later, he violated it. I was leaving school, walking to my car with the security guard, when I saw Marcus's car in the parking lot. He was sitting in it, watching the building. "That's him," I told the security guard, pointing. The guard immediately called the police while positioning himself between me and Marcus's car. Marcus saw us looking, started his engine, and drove away. But it was too late. He'd been spotted. A security camera had caught his license plate. The police arrested him that evening for violating the restraining order. He spent the night in jail and had to post bail in the morning. His attorney argued it was a misunderstanding, that Marcus was just driving through the area. But the judge wasn't buying it. "Mr. Sullivan, you were parked outside your wife's workplace in clear violation of a court order. This is your second violation of court orders, the first being the joint account incident. I'm increasing the restraining order distance to 1,000 feet and ordering you to wear a GPS ankle monitor. If you come within that distance of Mrs. Sullivan, you will be arrested immediately and held without bail. Do you understand?" Marcus, looking haggard and defeated, nodded. I felt a grim satisfaction. The ankle monitor was humiliating. People would see it, would know he was being tracked like a criminal. Which, I supposed, he was. The criminal trial began 2 weeks later. I sat in the courtroom every day, in the front row where Marcus could see me. I wanted him to know I wasn't hiding, wasn't afraid. The prosecution laid out the case methodically. Financial records showing the embezzled funds. Email trails proving Marcus had created phantom vendors. Testimony from Meridian's accountants about the discrepancies they'd found. And the journals. The prosecutor read excerpts that showed Marcus's intent, his planning, his complete lack of remorse. The defense tried to argue that the journals were fiction, creative writing, not actual confessions. The jury didn't buy it. Rachel, Jennifer, and Melissa all testified about Marcus's pattern of behavior, about how he used his position to exploit younger employees. It established character, showed a pattern of dishonesty and manipulation. Vanessa testified, too, about the affair, about Marcus's abuse after everything fell apart, about his threats against me. Marcus's attorney tried to paint all of us as vindictive women with an axe to grind. But there were too many of us, too many similar stories, too much corroborating evidence. The trial lasted a week. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Marcus's face went white as the verdict was read. Embezzlement, fraud, forgery. Each guilty verdict another nail in his coffin. Sentencing was scheduled for a month later. Marcus faced up to 15 years in prison. I left the courthouse feeling lighter than I had in months. Justice. Real, tangible justice. But I knew it wasn't over yet. The divorce still had to be finalized. The civil lawsuits were still pending. And Marcus, desperate and cornered, was still out there. I went home, checked all my locks, armed my security system, and poured myself a very large glass of wine. My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Congratulations. Now let's finish this. Yes, let's finish this. Because I had one final move to make. One last revelation that would ensure Marcus never recovered from what he'd done. And it involved the one person he cared about more than anyone, himself. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for mid-November. Marcus remained free on bail, monitored by his ankle bracelet, living in a cheap extended stay motel on the outskirts of Charlotte. His parents had finally disowned him after the guilty verdict. His few remaining friends had vanished. He was completely alone. Good. In the month between the verdict and sentencing, I focused on rebuilding my life. I'd taken a leave of absence from teaching, the principal had been incredibly understanding, and I needed to figure out what came next. Margaret was preparing for the final divorce hearing, scheduled for 2 weeks after Marcus's sentencing. She'd compiled everything. The affairs, the embezzlement, the journals, the threats. She was building a case for me to receive not just the house and retirement accounts, but also substantial alimony and damages for emotional distress. North Carolina allows divorce based on adultery, she explained during one of our meetings. And when we can prove financial misconduct and abuse, the court tends to be very generous to the wronged spouse. I'm confident we can get you at least $400,000 in liquid assets plus the house, plus 3 to 5 years of alimony at $5,000 per month. He doesn't have $400,000, I pointed out. No, but he has a pension that can be liquidated, assets that can be sold, and future earnings that can be garnished. We'll get our money, even if it takes years. I nodded, satisfied. But money wasn't enough. Not anymore. I'd been thinking about Marcus's journals, about the pattern they revealed. 7 years of exploitation. 7 years of viewing people as objects to be used. And I'd only found evidence of 4 women besides me: Melissa, Jennifer, Rachel, and Vanessa. What if there were others? I called Julia. I need you to do a deep background check. Every woman Marcus worked with over the past decade. Any who left the company suddenly, any who might have had contact with him. You think there are more victims? I know there are. Men like Marcus don't just suddenly start this behavior. It's a pattern, and patterns go back further than we've found. Julia went to work. What she uncovered was staggering. Over 10 years at Meridian Financial, Marcus had worked with dozens of young women in various capacities. Interns, junior analysts, executive assistants, and administrative staff. Julia cross-referenced their employment records with exit interviews and found a pattern. At least 8 women had left the company citing hostile work environment or personal reasons within 6 months of working closely with Marcus. 8 women, plus the 4 we already knew about. 12 potential victims. Julia tracked down 5 of them who were willing to talk. Their stories were heartbreakingly similar. Sarah Mitchell, a former intern, had been 21 when Marcus supervised her summer project. He'd been mentorly and kind at first, then increasingly flirtatious. When she rejected his advances, her performance reviews tanked and she wasn't offered a full-time position. Brianna Foster, a junior analyst, had dated Marcus briefly before learning he was married. When she tried to end things, he retaliated by sabotaging her work, causing her to miss a major deadline. She'd been fired for the mistake. Lauren Price had been an executive assistant before Rachel, before Vanessa. She'd had an affair with Marcus for 3 months before he'd grown bored and had her transferred to a different department with a $15,000 pay cut. And there were others, each story a variation on the same theme. Marcus using his position to exploit younger women, then destroying them professionally when they no longer serve his purposes. I compiled all of it. Every testimony, every exit interview, every piece of documentation. I created a comprehensive report showing Marcus's decade-long pattern of sexual harassment and abuse of power. Then I did something that would ensure he never worked in finance again. I sent the report to every major financial institution in Charlotte, to Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Truist, Credit Suisse, to the North Carolina Banking Commission, to professional organizations and industry publications. I sent it to the Charlotte Business Journal, which ran a massive exposé. Former Meridian executives' decade of harassment revealed. The article named names, with permission from the victims, and detailed the systematic way Marcus had preyed on young women. It went viral. National business publications picked it up. It became a case study in corporate abuse of power. Marcus's name became synonymous with workplace harassment. A Google search of Marcus Sullivan returned pages and pages of articles about his misconduct. His professional reputation wasn't just damaged, it was obliterated. But I wasn't done. I'd been saving the most devastating move for last. Something that would hurt Marcus in a way nothing else could. His pride. Marcus had always been obsessed with image, with being seen as successful, powerful, desirable. His entire identity was wrapped up in being the charming executive, the man everyone wanted to be or be with. I was going to strip that away completely. I created a website, MarcusSullivanTruth.com. On it, I posted everything. The timeline of his affairs, excerpts from his journals showing his true thoughts about the women he'd used, the financial records of his embezzlement, testimony from his victims, photos of him being arrested, wearing his ankle monitor, looking haggard and defeated. I posted the court documents from his criminal trial, the divorce filings, the restraining orders, everything that was public record, compiled in one easily searchable location. And I optimized it for search engines, made sure that anyone searching for Marcus Sullivan would find this site. Future employers, potential dates, anyone who Googled his name would see the truth about who he really was. Margaret warned me this might be going too far. He could sue you for defamation. Everything on that site is documented fact and public record. Truth is an absolute defense, remember. He could claim emotional distress. Let him try. After everything he's done, no jury would award him a dime. The website went live 3 days before his sentencing hearing. Marcus found out about it immediately, of course. His attorney filed an emergency motion to have it taken down. The judge denied the motion. Everything on this website appears to be factual and drawn from public court records, Judge Anderson ruled. Mr. Sullivan may not like having his misdeeds compiled in one place, but Mrs. Sullivan has the right to share truthful information. Motion denied. Marcus showed up to his sentencing hearing, looking like a broken man. He'd aged 10 years in the past few months. His expensive suits were gone, replaced by an ill-fitting blazer from a discount store. His hair, once perfectly styled, was limp and graying. His face was gaunt, eyes hollow. The prosecutor recommended the maximum sentence, 15 years. Marcus's attorney pleaded for leniency. "Your Honor, my client has lost everything. His career, his marriage, his reputation. He's already been punished far beyond what the law requires." Judge Anderson was unmoved. Mr. Sullivan used his position of power to exploit vulnerable employees for years. He stole from his employer. He forged documents. And even after being caught, he threatened his wife and violated court orders. This court sees no evidence of remorse, only entitlement. She paused, looking directly at Marcus. "Mr. Sullivan, you had every advantage. Education, opportunity, a loving wife who supported your career. You threw it all away for what? Momentary pleasure? A sense of power? Whatever your motivations, the harm you've caused is extensive and inexcusable. This court sentences you to 12 years in federal prison for embezzlement and fraud, with credit for time served. You will pay full restitution to Meridian Financial in the amount of $247,000, plus interest. You will pay damages to your victims in the civil suits as determined by those courts. And you are hereby barred from working in the financial services industry for life." 12 years. Marcus would be 54 when he got out. His career would be over. His reputation destroyed. His life in ruins. He didn't react to the sentence. He just sat there, staring at nothing, as bailiffs came to take him into custody. As they led him away in handcuffs, he looked at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just looked at him with the same cold indifference he'd shown me in his journals. "You're nothing to me now," that look said. "You're just a mistake I've corrected." He was the one who looked away first. "Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story." After Marcus was taken away, I walked out of the courthouse into brilliant autumn sunshine. Margaret walked beside me. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Empty," I admitted. I thought I'd feel triumphant, but mostly I just feel tired. That's normal. Revenge is exhausting, even when it's justified. "Is it over now?" "Almost. We still have the divorce hearing in 2 weeks. But that's going to be a formality at this point. Marcus has no leverage, no money to fight, and a criminal conviction that proves adultery and financial misconduct. Judge Anderson will give us everything we're asking for." She was right. The divorce hearing was anticlimactic. Marcus appeared via video call from prison, wearing an orange jumpsuit, looking utterly defeated. He didn't contest anything. He signed every document his court-appointed attorney put in front of him. Judge Anderson granted me the house, all marital assets including Marcus's pension and 401k, $350,000 in liquid damages, and $5,000 per month in alimony for 5 years, even though Marcus was in prison and couldn't pay. The debt would follow him after his release, garnished from any future earnings. "Mr. Sullivan," Judge Anderson said, "do you have anything to say?" Marcus looked at the camera, looked at me sitting in the courtroom. His voice was barely a whisper. "I'm sorry. Too little, too late. Divorce granted," Judge Anderson said with a strike of her gavel. "This marriage is dissolved." Just like that, 10 years of my life were legally over. I walked out of that courthouse a free woman. Single, financially secure, victorious. But the real victory wasn't the money or the house, or even seeing Marcus imprisoned. The real victory was what happened next. Rachel, Jennifer, Melissa, and the other women Marcus had abused started a support group. They called it Phoenix Rising, for women who'd been exploited in the workplace. They invited me to speak at their first meeting. I stood in front of 23 women, survivors of workplace harassment from various companies, and shared my story. Not just Marcus's betrayal, but my response to it. How I'd gathered evidence, built my case, and fought back. "You don't have to be silent," I told them. You don't have to accept that men in power can destroy your careers, your confidence, your lives. You have rights. You have power. And when you use it together, you're unstoppable." The room erupted in applause. Several women were crying. Afterward, at least a dozen came up to thank me, to share their own stories, to ask for advice on how to fight their own battles. Rachel hugged me tight. "You changed my life," she whispered. "I was so broken after what Marcus did. But seeing you fight back, seeing you win, it showed me I could fight too." "What are you doing now?" I asked. "I went back to school. Got my MBA. I'm working at a tech startup where they actually have real harassment policies and enforce them." She smiled. "And I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy." That's when I realized this was the real revenge. Not destroying Marcus, though that had been necessary, but building something positive from the ashes. Helping other women find their voices, their power, their way forward. I started volunteering with Phoenix Rising. I helped women document workplace harassment. I connected them with attorneys. I spoke at colleges and professional organizations about recognizing and reporting abuse of power. The Charlotte Business Journal did a follow-up story, Teacher Turned Advocate, how Simone Sullivan became a voice for workplace justice. I was invited to speak at conferences, to advise companies on harassment prevention, to train HR departments on how to actually support victims instead of protecting perpetrators. My life took on new meaning, new purpose. 6 months after Marcus's sentencing, I made a decision. I wasn't going back to teaching second grade. I love those kids, but I'd found a new calling. I enrolled in law school at the University of North Carolina. At 32, I was older than most of my classmates, but I didn't care. I was going to become an attorney specializing in employment law. I was going to fight for women like Rachel, like Jennifer, like all the victims who'd been silenced and discarded. I sold the house, too many bad memories, and bought a smaller condo near campus. I used the money from the divorce settlement to pay for school and live comfortably while studying. Life became busy but fulfilling. Classes during the day, studying at night, volunteering with Phoenix, Rising on weekends. I made new friends, built a new life, became a new version of myself. The Simone who discovered her husband's betrayal in his iPad photos felt like a different person. That woman had been naive, trusting, willing to make herself small to support someone else's dreams. The new Simone was strong, independent, unafraid to take up space and demand justice. I dated occasionally, though I was in no rush to remarry. One guy, a fellow law student named David, asked me out after we worked together on a mock trial. Full disclosure, I told him on our first date, I'm divorced. My ex-husband is in prison for embezzlement and fraud. He also cheated on me with multiple women and tried to steal our marital assets. I exposed everything publicly, destroyed his career, and got him sent to prison. So if you're looking for someone without baggage, I'm not your girl. David had stared at me for a long moment. Then he'd started laughing. Are you kidding? That's the most badass thing I've ever heard. You're like a one-woman Justice League. We've been dating for 3 months now. Nothing serious yet, but it was nice. He was kind, honest, and most importantly, he respected my boundaries and my independence. A year after the divorce, I got a letter from Marcus. It had been forwarded through multiple addresses before reaching me. Prison mail, heavily screened. I almost threw it away unread, but curiosity got the better of me. The letter was surprisingly short. Simone, I know you have no reason to read this or care about anything I have to say. I know I destroyed any right to your attention, your forgiveness, or your compassion. I'm not writing to make excuses. There are no excuses for what I did. I betrayed you in every way possible. I lied, cheated, stole, and tried to manipulate you into accepting less than you deserved. You were right about me. Everything you said, everything you exposed, it was all true. I am exactly the person you showed the world I was. Prison gives you a lot of time to think, to really see yourself without the lies and rationalizations. I've been forced to confront what I am, a narcissist who used people without caring about the damage I caused. The other inmates know what I did. Your website made sure of that. I'm not well liked here. That's an understatement. But I'm surviving, and I'm trying to use this time to become something other than the monster I was. I'm working with a therapist, going to group sessions, Reading books about accountability and change. I don't know if people like me can really change, but I'm trying. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that you were right to do everything you did. I earned every consequence, every punishment, every moment of public humiliation. You were a good wife. You deserved a good husband. I'm sorry I wasn't that person. I hope you're happy now. I hope you've built a life that makes you proud. You always deserved better than what I gave you. Marcus. I read the letter 3 times, looking for manipulation, for hidden angles, for some attempt to make me feel sorry for him. But it seemed genuine as Marcus was capable of being anyway. I wrote back, just once, a short letter. Marcus, I received your letter. I don't forgive you, and I probably never will. What you did caused too much damage to too many people. But I appreciate the acknowledgement. I appreciate that you're not making excuses or asking for sympathy. If you really want to change, don't do it for me or for any of the women you hurt. Do it for yourself and for whoever you become after you're released. I'm doing well. Better than well. I'm in law school, working to help other women who've been exploited by men like you. I found purpose in your destruction. That's probably not comforting to hear, but it's the truth. You hurt me, but you also inadvertently gave me a mission. You showed me how broken the system is, and now I'm working to fix it. So in a twisted way, thank you. Thank you for showing me who you really were. Thank you for underestimating me. Thank you for thinking I was too stupid and too passive to fight back. You were wrong about me. That's the last thing I need you to understand. Don't write again. Simone. I sent the letter and blocked any future mail from him. That chapter was closed. I'd said what I needed to say. 2 years after the divorce, Phoenix Rising had expanded to 5 cities across North Carolina. We had helped 63 women file successful harassment claims. We'd gotten 12 abusive executives fired or forced to resign. We'd changed policies at major corporations. Rachel had become the organization's executive director. Jennifer ran the Charlotte chapter. Melissa led our legal advocacy team. The women Marcus had tried to destroy were now destroying the systems that had protected him. I graduated law school with honors and passed the bar on my first try. I joined a prestigious employment law firm in Charlotte, specializing in sexual harassment and workplace discrimination cases. My first case was representing a young woman whose boss had been sending her inappropriate messages and retaliating when she rejected his advances. The pattern was so familiar it made my stomach hurt. But this time, I knew exactly what to do. We documented everything, gathered witnesses, built an airtight case. The company settled for $200,000 and fired the boss. My client cried with relief. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for believing me." Always, I told her. Women should always believe other women. That became my reputation. The attorney who believed victims and fought like hell for them. The attorney who'd taken down her own husband and would do the same to anyone else who abused their power. My practice grew. I won case after case. My name became known in employment law circles. Companies started cleaning up their act just to avoid having me come after them. 3 years after the divorce, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Miss Sullivan? This is Warden Patricia Reynolds from Federal Correctional Institution, Butner. I'm calling about Marcus Sullivan." My heart stopped. What happened? Is he? He's alive, but he's been attacked by another inmate. He's in the hospital now, stable but seriously injured. Why are you calling me? We're divorced. You're listed as his emergency contact. His parents declined to update the information. Of course they did. His parents wanted nothing to do with him. I appreciate the call, but I'm not his next of kin anymore. I can't help you. A pause. "Miss Sullivan, he asked for you. He said if anything happened, he needed you to know something." Against my better judgment, I asked, "What?" He said to tell you he's proud of what you've become. He reads about your cases online. He wanted you to know that seeing you succeed, seeing you help other women, it's the only good thing that came from everything he did. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to feel anything for Marcus. I'd worked so hard to move past what he'd done. "Is he going to survive?" I asked. "Yes, he'll recover. But Miss Sullivan, he has 9 more years on his sentence. The violence in prison, it's unpredictable. Thank you for letting me know. But please remove me as his emergency contact. His choices aren't my responsibility anymore. I understand. Take care, Miss Sullivan. After I hung up, I sat in my office for a long time. I thought about the Marcus I'd married, the charming, ambitious man I'd loved. I thought about the Marcus I'd discovered, the calculating predator who'd used and discarded people without remorse. And I thought about the Marcus in prison, attacked and alone, trying to change but still paying for his crimes. I felt nothing. No satisfaction in his suffering. No lingering anger or pain. Just a distant, clinical observation that actions have consequences, and Marcus was living his. He'd made his choices. I'd made mine. And I'd chosen to build something meaningful from the wreckage of our marriage. That was enough. I went back to work, preparing for my next trial. A case involving a CEO who'd been sexually harassing his assistant for 2 years. The evidence was solid. We were going to win. And that victory, like all the others, would mean something. Would help someone. Would make the world marginally safer for women just trying to do their jobs without being exploited. Marcus had tried to break me. Instead, he'd forged me into something stronger. 5 years after the divorce, I stood at a podium addressing the North Carolina Women's Bar Association. I'd been invited to speak about workplace harassment litigation and victim advocacy. The room was packed. Hundreds of attorneys, judges, law students, women who'd fought their own battles, won their own cases, broken their own glass ceilings. When I discovered my husband's infidelity and corruption, I told them I had a choice. I could have accepted a quiet divorce, taken my share of the assets, and moved on with my life. Many people would have understood that choice. But I realized something. His behavior wasn't just about me. It was part of a pattern. He'd been exploiting women for a decade, using his power to coerce and manipulate, then destroying careers to cover his tracks. If I stayed silent, he would do it again. To someone else. Some other young woman just starting her career, looking up to him, trusting him. And she would suffer just like his previous victims had suffered. So I made a different choice. I chose to expose everything. To document every affair, every act of financial fraud, every instance of abuse. I chose to make it public, to ensure he would face real consequences. Was it hard? Absolutely. Was it humiliating at times? Yes. Did people judge me for being so public about my pain? Definitely. But here's what I gained. I helped put a predator in prison. I gave his victims the closure and justice they deserved. I inspired other women to come forward about their own experiences. And I found my calling, fighting for women who've been exploited by men in power. That's worth every difficult moment, every tear, every sleepless night, every public judgment. So my message to you is this. When you encounter injustice, you have a choice. You can accept it quietly, or you can fight back with everything you have. Both choices are valid, but if you choose to fight, know that you're not alone. There's an entire community of women ready to support you, believe you, and amplify your voice. We are stronger together. And together, we're changing the culture that allowed men like my ex-husband to thrive for so long. The applause was thunderous. Women stood, some with tears in their eyes. Afterward, dozens came up to share their own stories, to thank me, to ask for advice. This was my life now, my purpose, my victory. That evening, I met David for dinner at our favorite restaurant. We'd been together for 4 years now, living together for 2. He proposed last month, and I'd said yes, but we were taking our time planning the wedding. No rush. We were building something real, something based on trust and equality and mutual respect. "How was the speech?" he asked, reaching across the table to take my hand. "Good. Really good. I think I might have inspired some future harassment attorneys." "I'm sure you did. You're kind of amazing at this." I smiled. I had good motivation. "Speaking of which," David said carefully, "I saw an article today. About Marcus. His parole hearing is coming up." My smile faded. "Already? He's only served 5 years. The article said he's been a model prisoner. Completed multiple rehabilitation programs, gotten his GED, been working in the prison library. His attorney thinks he has a good shot at early release." I sat back, processing. Marcus, free again. Back in the world. How do you feel about that? David asked. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me thinks 12 years was already too lenient. But another part. I paused, choosing my words carefully. People can change. If he's really done the work, really confronted what he did, maybe he deserves a second chance. Would you go to the hearing? Give a statement? I considered it. The victim impact statement I could give. The chance to tell the parole board exactly what Marcus had done, how many lives he damaged. But did I want to? Did I need to? No, I finally said. I've said everything I need to say. The parole board has all the evidence, all the victim statements from the original trial. My voice is already in the record. And if they release him, then he'll have to rebuild his life, just like I rebuilt mine. The difference is, I built mine on helping people, on creating something positive. If he's really changed, he'll do the same. And if he hasn't changed, I squeezed David's hand. Then the legal system will catch him again. And this time, it won't be me who takes him down. It'll be whoever he hurts next. Because I've made sure the system is better now. Stronger. Less willing to protect men like him. David smiled. You really have, haven't you? Changed the system. I've tried. There's still so much work to do. But yeah, I've made a dent. We ordered dinner, talked about our upcoming wedding, about David's cases at his environmental law firm, about normal, happy couple things. The conversation about Marcus faded into the background. He wasn't the center of my story anymore. He was just a chapter I'd closed, a lesson I'd learned, a catalyst for the life I'd built. And what a life it was! 6 months later, I got a notification. Marcus's parole had been denied. The board cited the severity of his crimes, the number of victims, and concerns about whether he'd truly addressed the underlying narcissism that had driven his behavior. He would serve his full 12-year sentence. I felt relieved, not because I wanted him to suffer, but because I wasn't ready for him to be free. Wasn't ready to potentially cross paths with him in the city we both called home. Maybe in 7 years, when he finally got out, I'd feel differently. Maybe by then I'd have evolved past the last traces of fear and anger. Or maybe not. Maybe some wounds don't fully heal, and that's okay too. I had my work, my purpose, David and our future together. The Phoenix Rising organization that was now national, helping hundreds of women every year. My law practice that had won over $5 million in settlements for harassment victims. I had built a life worth living. A life that mattered. Marcus could never take that away from me. 10 years after the slideshow that destroyed his career, I stood in a different conference room. This one was at the North Carolina State Capitol, where I'd been invited to testify before a legislative committee about strengthening workplace harassment laws. I wore a Navy suit, carried my briefcase full of research and case studies, and walked in with my head high. As I set up my presentation, I thought about that other conference room. The shocked faces, the gasps, Marcus's face as his world fell apart. I'd been terrified that day, even though I'd planned it carefully. Terrified of his reaction, of public judgment, of whether I was doing the right thing. Now I felt no fear, only confidence, only purpose. Miss Sullivan, the committee chair, said, "We're ready for your testimony." I stood at the microphone and began to speak. About my experience. About the systemic failures that had allowed Marcus to abuse his power for years. About the changes we needed, better reporting systems, stronger protections for victims, real consequences for perpetrators. I spoke for 30 minutes, answered questions for another 30. And when I was done, 3 legislators approached me to discuss drafting new legislation based on my recommendations. This was my revenge. Not destroying Marcus, that was just the first step. My real revenge was changing the world so that the next Marcus Sullivan couldn't do what he did. Couldn't prey on young women. Couldn't use his power to coerce and manipulate without consequences. I was making sure that every woman who came after me would have better protections, better resources, better support than I'd had. That was victory. That was justice. That was how you win. I walked out of the Capitol building into bright sunshine. Pulled out my phone and texted David. Testimony went great. On my way home. Love you. His response came immediately. Proud of you. Can't wait to hear about it. I'm making dinner. I smiled and headed for my car. My life. My future. My hard-won peace. Marcus had tried to destroy me. Instead, He destroyed himself and created something better in my place. I'd won. Not because I'd hurt him, though I had. Not because I'd taken his money and his freedom, though I'd done that too. I'd won because I'd turned my pain into purpose, my trauma into triumph, my victimhood into advocacy. I'd won because I was happy. Genuinely, authentically happy. And that was the best revenge of all.